Welcome back to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. And so our next leg of conversation now is the judiciary. As we told you earlier, we're visiting the Temple of Justice to look at the task before the new CJN, Justice Kudirat Kekereekun. And to join us on the program this morning for this conversation, we have Mr. Nelson Olanikwekun Esquire, who is the Executive Director, Citizens Gavel. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And I see that you have come fully equipped, in fact, armed. But
yeah.
The intention is certainly not to harm.
Yeah.
So let's get straight into it. We saw the screening yesterday, and
Yes.
the new CJN said, proudly so, that she's known for her integrity and for discipline. And those are virtues that are in short supply, in the judiciary currently.
Yes.
Starting with the obvious,
Yes.
her gender.
Yes.
Do you think that would be a problem, particularly in enforcing those virtues that are in short supply in a seemingly male-dominated field? Yeah,
I think that over the time, we all know that a lot of judges are female judges. So I don't think gender would be an issue. Be a female judge shouldn't be an issue. And of course, the head of the legislature is a male, the president is a male, and it is just really nice to have a female head of the judiciary. So, and I think the big task before the CJN now, our Lordship Kekereekun, is to see how to reposition the judiciary. Over time, the MBS report came out about the corruption level in the judiciary, worse than what we see in the police and in customs. That's alarming. And even our own internal report at Citizen Gavel also speaks to the level of corruption in the judiciary. So the big elephant in the room is corruption in the judiciary. And I think, and that is why I bring forward this main thing, these figurines to the studio. I think in Nigeria, what we need to see is how do we handle the lack of rule of law in judiciary, which has really been worsened by the level of corruption in judiciary. Everybody wants to see a reform in Nigeria at the moment. The democratic principles is failing, and to an extent, it has really failed to a great degree. So how do we fix that with the judiciary? The judiciary is the chief accountability organization, arm of the government. And it's very important that if we can put that in place, every other thing that we see in the country is fixed. And I represent the figure, the people with this figurine. This is average Nigeria, you and I. We face issues around police brutality. We face different levels of injustice. After this average you and I, we have the institution. You have the police. You have the customs. You have the normal institutions that you interact with, and you have the elephant in the room, the judiciary. And what happens is that naturally, when people get to interact with these institutions, for example, an institution that is hot right now is the NNPC. When people interact with them, you get different levels of, there is corruption here, there is issues here, people are not obeying the laws and all that. But if you can fix the judiciary, there is a way the chief accountability arm of government, which is the judiciary, fixes the institution because it's able to hold the institution accountable, and the institution, on the other hand, holds the people accountable. So the ripple effect is very enormous. So you see law and order and rule of law. So imagine the judiciary is fixed. It rests on the institution, like the police, and it rests on the citizen. And everything causes a ripple effect, whereby the Nigeria, you begin to see obedience to normal, even simple issues like traffic laws. You get rule of law compliance from government parastatals, because these are the things that we have issues with. But going beyond that is also other issues that faces the judiciary, like appointment of judges. There has been issues around nepotism in the judiciary, corruption. So you see a sitting judge putting his wife as a court of appeal, a sitting governor or minister putting his wife as a court of appeal, or different scenarios like that. And you also see where CJNs, past CJNs, put their children, as judges. Nepotism has become the order of the day. So putting structures in place that enhances transparency and appointment of judges that have got integrity is very key. That is one of the first mandates, because these people are the people that interfaces. The everyday judge are the ones that interface with.
So speaking of fixing the judiciary, by the way, we're going to get to Coyote very shortly. One of the things that may have made the judiciary, that institution, to feel isolated in the last decades would be poor remuneration. But we have seen that this administration has, sort of fixed that with an increase in remuneration for judicial officers. So will that address these challenges in the next couple of years down the line? Or are we going to be needing an institution that needs to reflect, and take a long look at itself in the mirror and also, do its own part?
Yeah, so I think the remuneration part is a good one. However, I see a way, my issue is the judiciary gets to rely on the executive for remuneration, which shouldn't be, because that puts a lot of reliance. And that means the level of independence between the judiciary and the executive and the legislation becomes, it's not properly placed. So I'm hoping that the CJN also looks at the remuneration further, how they could reduce the reliance on other arms of government. And so they don't need to have permission. Recently, the president approved houses for judges. Now, the questions out there is the president preparing for 2027? Because he recently increased remuneration and he's approving. So that's the question out there. But the main thing I would like the CJN to do is how can they break the level of reliance on the executive by even looking inward and generating revenue that they could use to be sustainable, independent of the executive. So the allowances can be paid from income generated inwards, and they can now be able to speak and put judgments, and talk to people and make orders that reflects the wishes of people and not just things that would reflect the aspirations of the politicians.
And there's so many issues to explore in that space, but let's head to Abuja now. Coyote has some questions for you.
Well, thank you, Bukola. Mr. Nelson, they say he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So it's expected that this will be a major concern. We'll see how she'll navigate it. But another point, or another issue has been having the courts decide elections, or at least those who win elections eventually, and not the voters who went out to vote for candidates of their choice. I know she would have lots of election petitions to handle, maybe starting with the Edo election, and maybe, who knows, the Ondo election, on and on like that. Is there some fix that she can maybe apply in that area?
Yeah, so one big issue that we've noticed over time is the issue of election petition and judiciary dictating who sits on that seat, and that's a big issue because that oftentimes it does not reflect the wishes of an average Nigerian. So I think the CJN needs to reposition the judiciary in such a way that it would dissociate itself and the judiciary can reflect the wishes of the people. Now, one big thing that has to do with election petition is the corruption that is thriving. So instituting a monitoring system that curbs corruption. So when election petition judges are sitting, there should be a monitoring system that oversees the day-to-day runnings and that the judges, the panel, the election petition judges, their day-to-day runnings. But beyond that, it's also a clear-cut procedure, criteria for the selection of election petition judges. You don't really have that at the moment. You've got a lot of there is lack of opacity in that system. We're looking at the judiciary that we can put all the necessary criteria in place for the selection of judges, election petition judges, and also further putting oversight mechanism in place to curb the SSCs of these judges during that time. Then also investigation of any form of allegations during that time. Sometimes when you read judgment, you see that this judgment does not align. In law, you see there is a principle of stare decisis. Judgments from lower court should align with previous decision, but sometimes you see a very wide divergence. So putting, wherever you see those divergences, you need to, by yourself, by the judiciary, look at ways of investigating why didn't this new judgment comply with previous judgment?
And you know, that's just a part of the problem.
Yes.
Some would say that the reforms, you know, should be as holistic, wall to wall, as should be as, you know, all encompassing from floor to ceiling.
Yes.
We could go on and on about it, but you know, there's pressure on even me from this side of the divide, you know, to wrap up the conversation. I wish we had more time, but we look forward to having you yet again on the program. We want to thank you very much, Mr. Nelson Olanikpekun, Executive Director, Citizens Gavel. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you so much.
And that does it on our package for you today. Of course, we'll be back again tomorrow for another rich one on your perfect day starter. Thank you so much for watching. I am Bukola Kloka.
Don't worry, we have our eyes on all of those issues. The EFCC, Bob Risky, very dark black man, Mr. Falana, his son. But not to worry, we'll get you more insights. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Sunrise Daily is next. Goodbye.